Hello everyone and welcome to another MGA webinar. Today we have with us Frank Ravanelli, the APAC Digital Media and Marketing Operations Manager at FOREO. Frank has been in digital marketing since 1995. He has been leading remote teams and projects across the globe for almost 14 years. Today he'll be talking about remote working best practices. In this webinar, we're going to discuss how to maximize the opportunities offered by remote working while minimizing any challenges that may arise. Frank, I will turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Casey. Let me just share my screen so we can get started. So today I will cover remote working from different aspects. As a worker, as a manager of teams, as a business person, or as a potential investor in remote ventures. And I will mention some tools and takeaway points. And if anyone has any questions, then we can address them at the end. So about myself, Casey already introduced me. So I've been working remotely for quite a while by choice. So I developed a bit of experience about what works and does not in a remote environment. The company I work for is FOREO, a Swedish skin tech company which specializes in beauty and skincare. So we start from remote working from a personal level. So unless you are basically working totally independently, meaning you have no teams to report to or no teams to work with, if you have specific individual deadlines, for example, if you are a translator, so unless you belong to this type of remote workers, it may make sense to let go of some myths that people built about remote working. So the first point is, does it mean a person can work from everywhere? Well, the answer is probably no. The reason being that if a person is always on the move, well, you will need to do that during outside working hours, meaning usually during weekends. If there are delays in transportation, if there are problems with the local internet, then it will be up to you. So if you move like locally, then no problem. But if you move internationally, which anyway, now it's pretty impossible, that would be really hard to do as a remote worker. Even when COVID is gone, there are some areas where the internet infrastructure is pretty poor, so then it will not be a suitable place to work remotely. In terms of when a person works, well, your colleagues, your clients have expectations about when they can communicate with you. Of course, it can be done by emails. But if everyone is on a different time zone or everyone is working at random times, it's going to take several days before people can get to actually having a real conversation. So it also creates big working without a schedule, creates also issues in terms of trust, in terms of expectations. People don't know when you are online, when you're not. So if you set a precise work schedule, you make sure you make the best of your time, your colleagues' time, your clients' time, and you also protect your free time. In terms of if everyone is a good match for remote working, well, I interviewed a lot of candidates for our vacancies, and some of them are very, genuinely transparent, and they say that no, they don't want to work remote because they need, for some reasons, to be in an office. It can be people who are junior and they value the office interactions as a way to build contacts and to grow their career. And there are some people who are senior and they don't think they will be able to manage remote groups. So basically, if you are not 100% remote proficient, or let's say if you don't like to work always remote, well, there will always be companies who are also office-based. And that's the same for your talent. You need to screen to make sure that working remotely is a suitable option for them. In terms of strategies to be successful, it always starts from defining what success means for you. You identify strengths and opportunities of doing this remotely and weaknesses and challenges, and then you act accordingly. But I can just give my own personal experience with it for myself. Being successful, it means I need to cover around 12 hours per day to be able to bridge Asian, European, and the part of US time to take care of aspects that are directly under my management, like performance marketing, HR, of course, taking care of the payments and facilitating information among the colleagues, and other aspects that I influence but are not directly connected to me. And I need to do this and keep fresh until the 12 hour. So this is what I define as a successful day for myself. So when I look at what my strengths are and the opportunities I see, I love working remotely. I save on commuting. And I think that the most effective way is to mix mainly remote with face-to-face business meetings, which for me happen mainly in Asia. And I was also lucky because I started to doing at a time when it was not very fashionable, and now it's a skill which is in high demand. In terms of challenges, well, all the face-to-face component is gone. So I need to compensate for now with more remote interactions. And we also need to keep in mind that, for example, my company is not 100% remote. Some people are remote, some people are in the office, and there are other companies like that. So you need to make sure you always make clear the value you create, because that's how you advance professionally when you have colleagues who are in office while you are remote. Of course, this does not cover all the possible scenarios. What I cover so far is my personal experience. Best practices for productivity, to be transparent. Of course, I need to take some time out of office during the day from time to time, because considering the 12-hour length, there are things I need to do. So I just make sure everyone is aware of that. I need to take breaks to keep fresh, which in my case means in the morning, and then of course for meals. And well, if you do have a dog or any other set commitment, then it helps a lot. And I focus on impact. So basically, being remote is all about the value you create, even more than if you are in an office. So you need to always be able to explain the results you got, which usually means sales, and why you actually achieve them, and it's not just a matter of luck. And sometimes, well, results don't necessarily come overnight. You need to build them. So while you are in that process, it's important to document what you're doing so people see that you're going in the right direction. Another best practice for productivity is to get at the bottom of things really quick. If you wait, or if you space out meetings and so on, then everything will be delayed. So it's important to, if you have a question, something is unclear, just address it with teams or with your boss or with your clients at once. It's important to be polite because even if maybe we think we are being like funny or so on, but without body language, like total lack of body language, it means that people may misunderstand what we are doing, the message that we want to convey. It's important to basically, as I say, get to the point faster and to understand what your plans and tasks are by categorizing them. So is it something necessary to do today? Is something optional? Is something that must be done now? Something that can be done later? Is it a regular task, meaning that you must find a way to streamline it? Is it a one-time task? So even if you have to invest some more time, it's okay, because then you will not have to go through the same process again. And personally, I like to cluster the tasks. So if I do invoices, I do it mainly on Fridays because it's kind of routine. I can analyze the data and I'm sure I have a time to do accurately. Our meetings which clarify what we do during the week, we have them on Monday. So that's already clarified with the teams and then we can go and get the job done. Now we move into practices if you are a manager or if you want to build the remote teams yourselves. So again, individuals have different talents, different expectations. So you need to understand each of them. It helps if initially you meet sometimes in person. If it's not possible, then one-to-one short conversations to understand their career goals and to make sure they understand what the goals, your expectations are. It's always important to lead by example, which they don't see you physically. So the only thing they can see is the speed you answer their questions, how fast or accurate you are when you address emails and so on. I think there is this, at least for me, let's say misunderstanding that many people think a leader is someone who is constantly there to motivate people. Well, maybe if you have a team of 5 people, but when you start to have like dozens of people in different time zones, it is about motivation. But as a leader, your role is to provide clear goals and to give example of strategies that will allow them to achieve these goals and to provide the tools they need to achieve such goals. So of course it's important to motivate them, but there needs to be something more substantial. Like you actually need to discuss blueprints, get their feedback and outline plans. Because without face-to-face contact, if you don't do this, everything will be just very, very blurry. Timing is very important for interactions. Basically, I understood that if I interact with people daily, the expectations are set daily. And if we would interact on a monthly basis, the expectations are set month by month. If you are like a digital, mainly digital or digital only company, you need to move really fast. So this turns, in concrete terms, it means for the whole team, you can have like a once per week meeting and very, very briefly with key managers who report to you, you can have daily meetings. It's more productive to have a short meeting every day or every week than to have a meeting which goes on for hours, weeks after something happened. So timing and being concise is very important. A tangible example is this is the same you would do in an office, but again, people don't see you. So you need to prove it in a tangible way. Is the standards you set for your teams, never ask them more than you ask yourself. So if you expect real-time answers, then you need at least to acknowledge very fast when your team members contact you. There are some time of the year like Black Friday, or if you are launching an app, there are part of the years when it's very important that you get 100% commitment from everyone to work on the launch. So you need people available for long. So, well, be available at least as long as you expect them to be. And that's the same for transparency. So in reality, online, I would say the more senior you are and the higher standards you need to set for yourself. And the key responsibilities are involving the teams in the goal settings, make sure that the goals are clear and, in my case, usually public, which means that every team has a spreadsheet with the expected revenue or any type of KPI which is set for the team members. It's public, so everyone knows where we stand. It's public, so people know that it must be fair because they can see each other. They can see if there is a big discrepancy, they would ask why. And it's important to know what the team members lack in order to succeed, but at the same time to make sure that people are active now. So even if they need a tool and you do acknowledge that that tool is important for them, you don't necessarily need to wait until the tool is provided. There is usually something that can be done even without having the full set of resources. Now we go through remote working from a business point of view. So a reality check. So basically it starts again from defining success. If you want to be a business person and do it 100% remotely, like, do you want a lifestyle business, or do you want let's say, business which may grow into corporation? So if you want a lifestyle business like drop shipping, low funnel affiliate marketing, developing your own apps as like a freelancer, so things done on a smart scale, you would take one approach. On the other hand, if you actually want to grow it beyond this lifestyle and grow it into a real business, then you will need to take our approaches. So for lifestyle business, that's something I did when I was an affiliate. So basically, I did everything by myself, outsourced very few things, did the SEO, built a website, did the SEO. So that's a lifestyle business, because as long as I make enough money to get at the end of the day, that's what I need. So you need to start strong. If you want to free up your time, delegate tasks which are repetitive, and ask these people from time to time to give you updates, and just check the results. So the lifestyle business, if you need to add the team members, it's mainly management by results. If they perform, you keep them. If they don't, they are gone. There is not much of a, let's say, mentoring or leadership involved. Of course, the barriers to entry are usually low. So if you can build some assets, like if you are an affiliate and you can build an opt-in newsletter, then it's an asset that you could use into another business if the demographics are relevant and if you get the permission. So if you find ways to leverage something that you build in one business to the next, then of course you maximize your profits, and being a lifestyle business, you're accountable only to yourself. When you start thinking about a real corporation, well, do you have a capital to start with a small team? And it's very important, basically, you manage the roles which are critical for your business, and you delegate as much as you can from the start, so you can focus on where most of the value is created for your customer. And here, basically, you would use the advices that I offered in the previous part of this presentation. So this is really managing teams. So you need them to have a precise work schedule. You need to get daily or at least weekly updates. You need to know the results yourself. And well, if you succeed, then bit by bit, you're building some barriers for other companies that they want to take market share from you. You always need to know where your advantage actually is, like in every business. But just be aware that having a corporation which is entirely remotely does require some diligence in hiring and also quite a bit of discipline in management. In case of venture capitalists that will invest in remote businesses, well, if you invest in a fully remote company, theoretically, you can have a much higher return on investment. Your money goes in the product or everything that is customer facing. So you're not financing expensive rentals, you're not financing company cars and so on. At the same time, there is a challenge, which is if something goes, if your investment goes really well, or if it goes really performs really poorly, then you need to ask yourself how you enforce your investors' right. Unless the founder is cooperating with you, you don't have usually much practical leverage, because in a totally, entirely online business, the assets are, tangible assets tend to be pretty slim. So if you invest in remote businesses, you need to think about some leverage, like do you have ownership of a domain which is used by the company you invest in, or so on. In terms of a checklist, I would say, of course, it's not comprehensive, but it's a basic one. So someone asks for you to invest in their business. Is it a lifestyle business? If it is, then drop it, because if it works well, it's going to be too small. And if it doesn't work, then you just lose money. Does it lack intellectual property? If so, it's better to drop it, because it means that there is really little way to keep competitors out. Is this intellectual property strong or weak in the company's target countries? If intellectual property is strong, then sure. If it's weak to enforce it there, then well, it's kind of the same of not having it. So I would drop the investment. You would ask the founders why they are working remotely. Is it just to save money? If that's the only reason, then drop it. A company should be remote for a strategic reason, not just for keeping costs low. And you need to see what's the assets that will be created by this company. And well, if there are no assets that you can claim as a compensation, I would drop this investment unless you are on very good terms with the founders. Some tools and takeaway points. So in terms of tools, I really have no secrets. We use basically Google Calendar. We use Zoom or like our tools for meetings. We have instant message. Well, in my case, considering I deal mainly with Asia, we use a bit different from what maybe you would use if you are in the United States, but still we use like instant messengers, collaborative tools to share like docs online. The KPIs, as mentioned, are always made available to all the team members, and they are shared on a basically spreadsheet. And we use a lot of Tableau for data analysis. So everyone can see the data without messing up the data sources. So some takeaway points for you is remote working is here to stay. So if you're focused on a career in general, well, probably you will work remotely at least sometimes or some parts of your career. And if you are a business person, you will probably have some workers which will be remote most or at least sometimes of a working time. So what it means is that the location advantage is gone. So you have opportunities on, let's say, at least nationwide or even global scale, but also competition from everyone. And as a business, well, you can hire talent globally, but you also have competitors coming to compete for market share from everywhere. And so unless someone is kind of leaving the market, job market or business soon, then basically it's very important to have a strategy for remote working. If anyone has any, Casey, back to you. And if anyone has any questions, please go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Frank. We will now take questions. We have a bit of time for Q&A. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. I will start off with a couple questions of my own. My first question is, do you have any recommendations, like what's your favorite task manager for keeping a track of, assignments and whatnot?
Well, we use Basecamp a lot. That's probably the most functional. There are open sources versions, but in terms of we thought it's better just to use that than to allocate IT resources to maintain our options. The reason why it's good, there is some interaction. You can track everything. Everything is attached to the project. You get reminders to go out without having to every time personally ping people. People can also be self-accountable. So I would say Basecamp is the best tool I used. In our companies, we used similar tools, but I think that's probably the best.
Awesome, thank you. And do you have any thoughts about job searches or recruitment in this remote environment? Is there anything that job search people looking for jobs should be aware of, or anything that recruiters need to do differently on their end?
Well, we did a lot of changes in terms of HR, and we found the perfect remote HR who deals with recruiting remote talent. What we noticed is that, we use LinkedIn mainly, and it may be more if we do post vacancies, but usually the quality of the candidates we get is way higher if we contact them. We see if in the profile they already have some remote experience. Of course, many of them don't reply, but the ones who reply are usually already a very, very good fit to join us if we both decide to go ahead. On the side of the candidate, I would say it's always important. First up, remote jobs, like you need to understand if it's actual job or if it's basically an affiliate deal masked as a remote job. Now, of course, there are tons of remote jobs, but for example, when I started, a lot of vacancies were mainly affiliate deals. They would have made you a master affiliate, and then you would have earned only on results. If it's something you want to do, that's great, but I would stay away from these and basically make sure the companies are actually committed to have proper salaries and team members. The way you portray yourself, we all see on LinkedIn tons and tons of people who became available searching for careers during the last, let's say until summer, it was fine, but from second half of August onwards, even in some markets where the talent is on high demand, like Singapore and so on, like entire teams became available because they lost their current job. And these are people that they didn't do anything wrong. It's like there were substantial restructuring. So you need to show why you stand from the competition. If you want to work remotely, you need to show why, but not from your own point of view. Because, if you want to work remotely to save commuting, to live in a, let's say, second tier city with a better quality of life, it all makes sense. But to the company, you need to show why you are the right candidate to do remotely. So ideally, you have already some remote experience. If you don't have remote experience, you need to speak, I would suggest you speak with several people who do work remotely. So you do, again, a reality check. Because if, when we interviewed people, even in the past, and we talked about remote and people were super excited, but then they were like, oh yeah, that's great. So like, I can be flexible working time. And for me are all like red flags, because it means that the person is focusing only on what's in for them and not for the other side, the hiring managers and the company. So by one suggestion as a potential candidate is, if you do have experience remote, make sure it stands out on your LinkedIn. The roles that you had remote, mark them as such, and embrace working remotely. If you're yourself, you're not sure if remote is good for you, then I would rather, if you have a specific skill like translation, IT development, app development, then I would rather test it as a project freelancer, so you understand if it's really a lifestyle that you want to have. Because for many people, including myself, it's a blessing that I can work remote. But for some people, after 1 or 2 months, they're burnt out. So I would save your own time and also the recruiter's time, and just test it on a smaller scale and make sure people understand why you are the right candidate to work remotely.
Awesome, thank you. And for those of you who are still listening and watching in, please feel free to ask any questions. Frank is here to help you. This is why we do this. So please don't, be shy. I have another question, probably my final question. You mentioned intellectual property earlier, and I'm just wondering, do you have any insights on how to gauge the strength of an IP, especially in the earlier stages?
Sure. First is really a market check. So if you're targeting, let's say, United States, UK, Germany, Italy, and you do have a proper IP registration there, then you're pretty safe. If you are targeting some countries which are growing very fast but are not fully developed yet, then usually intellectual property, even if it exists on paper, it does not exist. It's not easy to enforce in practice. So if you want to invest in a business, or if you want to create your business, first ask yourself where most of your customers will be. So if it's in these countries that we mentioned, like US and so on, then I think as long as you do the proper legal procedures, you're fine. If you are in our markets where you can register, but it's very hard to enforce, then you need to be 100% value oriented. So people will use your services or buy your products only if they have a higher value than to go from some copycat. So in that case, it's a way more uncertain. Basically, you need to educate your existing customers. If you don't have any, then again, I would think what's better to do. Do you need to create something from scratch, or can you license something from existing players in both markets and then build your own IP on top of that? So it's mainly, I would say, market driven, if your jurisdiction does allow to enforce the IP or not.
Awesome, thank you. And we do have a question from the audience. Thank you so much to the person who asked. Their question is, how do you keep yourself motivated while working remotely? Which I definitely have had my own troubles with here and there, so it's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And if you like a kind of the reward of completing a task, then, well, it goes quite easily. But in the long term, yes, you may feel a bit of fatigue. So if you do have our team members, if you share your key priorities with them, even if they are just your peers, so they're not your boss, but still it makes easier for you then to have it's basically you're committing to something publicly. The second is to prioritize, because it's very easy to give attention to something which seems urgent, but in reality, it's not that important. And then you end up splashing your energies. So if you prioritize, then you will get results. And when you get results, then you will be motivated to keep doing it. So I would say a public commitment if you have a team, and prioritizing your tasks and your what you're aiming to. If you are just doing it by yourself, then, well, I guess you will have to rely on family and friends, and hopefully they like your type of work and they will not get bored when you share with them what you're doing today and what your goals are.
Awesome, thank you. And I think we are out of time. So Frank, thank you so much for speaking with us today and sharing your insights. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you as well for tuning in. And if you did get here late, we will be having this video uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly. Thank you again, Frank, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you, Casey. Bye-bye. Take care.